The following story has been brought to you by StoriesToInspire.org.
So my father was a businessman, and one of the biggest women's clothing companies, department stores, many years ago was a store called Petrie's. It was clothing. They're not in business anymore. Very, very, very huge. And my father wanted their business. One of the richest Jews alive was Milton Petrie. You can Google him tonight. He was one of the richest Jews alive, not religious, nothing. But now was he married? He was married. We had these two women that were right underneath him, the presidents, and he had a dog. Okay. Anyway, so my father was making bags, plastic bags in Israel. That's where he would not deal with China, even though he could buy bags much cheaper. He was very much into helping Eretz Yisrael. Help Eretz Yisrael. You give people business. So he was one of the major exporters of sakiot nylon, plastic bags, from Eretz Yisrael. Milton Petrie, was one of the biggest givers to the Israeli government. So my whole father's way of getting into him was, I'm bringing the bags from Israel. You're trying to help Israel. So Milton Petrie said, fine, I'll meet you. This is the chairman of the board. This is the owner of Petrie. He's worth $100 million, $1 billion, a crazy, crazy amount of money. And he's meeting Mr. Wallerstein, who wants to import plastic bags to bring into his stores. So my father said, let's go out to eat. Luigi Siegel's, at that time Luigi Siegel's in Manhattan was one of the only OU kosher restaurants. So my father took my mother wherever he went. She was like his secretary. So he comes with my mother to this meeting with Milton Petrie to get the biggest order of his life. And they sit down, and Petrie came very late. He came very, very late. So it was time for mincha. For my father, he figured that they were eating at 5. It was in the summer, mincha's at 8. He'd have enough time. But Petrie showed up very late. So my father had this problem. Petrie's sitting there, Milton Petrie. My father's sitting there with my mother. They start talking over dinner. And he sees on his watch that mincha is like in a couple of minutes. And what are you going to do? But Lamaisa, you can't get up and walk out on the guy. Milton Petrie. So my mother always tells us this story. I mean, I know my father said it over many times. So my father turns to my mother, and he says, you entertain him. In other words, talk to him. I'm going to leave, and I'm going to go daven mincha down the block. My father knew where every shul was in Manhattan. I'm going to daven mincha ma'ariv, and I'll come back. My mother's like, he's like, just do it. Okay? So she sat there for like 40 minutes, half an hour, 40 minutes, just making conversation with this guy. Now, Petrie thought my father went to the bathroom. The guy gets up, the chairman of the board of a company, and walks out in the middle of dinner, leaves him with his wife. He figured my father went to the bathroom. He doesn't feel it, whatever it is. It's the biggest line. So my father comes back, and he sits down, and Petrie says, Mr. Wallerstein, are you okay? It's like, where have you been? You know, he was a big shot. Where have you been? Like, you walked out on me. Where have you been for the last 35 minutes? And my father says, I would just like to excuse myself. I know that you're the chairman of the board of Petrie, but I went to meet the chairman of the board of the world. That's what he said. Wow. And Petrie said, he didn't understand. Milton, he said, what are you talking about? There's the chairman of the board of the world? He says, yeah. He says, I'm an Orthodox Jew, and 3 times a day we have to report to the chairman of the board what's going on, just like your workers. And I set this up so that I would be able to sit with you for 2-3 hours and then go pray. But the situation. So I'm really sorry. I apologize. But as important as your order is for me, it's more important that I don't miss my appointment with the chairman of the board of the world. Wow. My father said. He looks at my father and says, Wallerstein, I don't need to know anything about your business. You have my business. And my father looked at him, and they became the best of friends. And until Mr. Petrie died and Petrie ended up closing, he had all their business. So many people came in with, I'll have better prices and better this and this. And Petrie said, he quote, because Hilda, who was his assistant, told my father, you don't know how many people came to Milton with connections that he should buy bags from them. And Mr. Petrie used to always tell them, Mr. Wallerstein talks to the chairman of the world. You don't. I really want to do business with someone who talks to the chairman of the board of the world.
Enjoyed this story? Come again. Bring a friend. StoriesToInspire.org